Hello. Back again. This episode, though, we're going into leadership, daring to lead. Well, I'll let Mark cover it, because if I just said armoured leadership versus biscuits and cheese, it wouldn't make any sense.
Armadillo leadership. Armadillo.
Yeah, you just told us what the two things were, and I forgot the second one, so I fluffed that.
Yeah.
So, Mark, leadership.
Yeah. So the back end to the story, he says, raising his eyebrows, is this week I'm away London for a couple of days delivering a leadership workshop, and part of the 247 slides I'm doing is slight exaggeration is a segment on a book called Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. I would look up some of her YouTube stuff. It's really, really good. But the principle about Dare to Lead is it sort of covers two principles of leadership. One is coming from an armoured leadership perspective, where we're very insular and protecting what we've got, versus daring leadership, which I hope we feel that we're the daring side. We're pushing the boundaries. We're innovative, leading from the heart, practicing gratitude. So it sort of covers the two types of people, and we could probably straight away pick out leaders that we've met across our time that we would say come from an armoured leadership perspective versus a daring leadership. Could you?
Yeah, I mean, is it fair to say that an armoured leader, when in terms of being protective, would you say, because I've met a few of these where they care more about protecting their image, protecting their career for the next ladder up, rather than a protective as in, I'm looking after my team, making sure they don't get any bad noise, and I'm firewalling against the guys up above to stop them passing down all of this rubbish. No, armoured as in they care only about pleasing the guys at the top, not the guys at the bottom, and doing all the little jobs and making sure all the people at the same level are happy. They care only about, I've made the CFO happy, I've made the CTO happy, I've made the CEO happy. I might get a leg up. Is it fair? Does that sit in with that category as well? Those sorts of
100%,
people.
Yeah. I think you're right, and also things like leading for compliance. I remember working at M&S, and we basically, as leaders, had to follow the blueprint book, and you couldn't go left or right or up or down out of that blueprint book. And it was so terrible for me on reflection, because you weren't allowed to be innovative, really. And I know I'm putting that in very simplistic terms, but it was, as you describe it, very much about you and the career ladder. To be fair, though, armoured leadership also has its positive side, whereas if you're protecting the individuals from something, that can be described as armoured. But it was predominantly perceived as the negative side of leadership. So, yeah. I mean, the interesting thing is when I'm going through the model and I'm building it, armoured leadership tends to be more cautious and conservative. Traditional leaders, as we might have called them, focused on authority, structure, and order. Strong and in control was words that we use. Serious. We've met some of them serious leaders, haven't we? Yeah. Decision based on logic and fact, which actually I don't mind a bit of that, because I like a bit of a combo on armoured versus daring when we talk about, because we're both sort of data logic, aren't we?
Yeah, you would. If I walked into your office with a need, you would expect a plan and a reason behind it. Like I had to, come and say, look, I've got this thing, I want to do this. We can't do that without this. So we wanted to innovate, but you were like, yeah, but you can't just waltz in and ask me for 50 grand and go, I've got this experiment. It might. You were like, no. What's it? Your famous question always was, what's it going to give you? What's it going to give you? So it had to have like a reason to be, so that, because you are answering to other people, so we had to. Yes, it was an innovative idea, but I still had to prove in some way what it was going to deliver. So I knew what good looked like. That was the other question. What does good look like? What's it going to give you? So I had to answer them couple of questions before I even got to your office. I had to come with those things I was going to deliver with it.
Yeah, because we can come from too much passion, can't we, with not enough logic behind it, which you want the passion, but you want a combo of logic. And which is I believe is what we were creating. We had passion with logic.
It's going to have its place. So we had lots of. There was no daft ideas. Anybody could say anything. But then the way we approached it was quite structured. So we logically planned these things in. Say, right, well, we don't want to interrupt this much too much, but we'll put it in stages. But we're going to get there. So it sounded like some of the ideas sounded mad, but once we got them running, they all made sense. But we didn't just charge in and tear everything to bits and go, right, we're all going to do this and we're ripping this out. No. We had to do it bit by bit by bit. So logic has its place, I think.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I think on sort of the daring leadership side, we've got likely to take risks and be innovative. We know about that. Creativity, exciting and dynamic, more open to new ideas and inspiring and motivating. Those are the sort of daring leadership ones. And the pros to the daring leadership are we foster a positive and productive work environment. We get better communication because, as you said, everybody feels like they can contribute and say something that you won't be ridiculed for. It's not like, as we did the previous episode, it's not like being at school where somebody's going to take the mick out of you because you got a wacky idea. Because some of those wacky ideas can turn into flipping fantastic things.
Yeah.
You build trust with that as well, with this sort of daring leadership. You're building trust because you're allowing people to express themselves and go off in a direction. And we tend to adapt well to change if we're in a daring leadership style. We tend to be able to move more fluidly rather than being stagnated by the armoured leadership style.
Wasn't that kind of exactly what happened when we went over to Germany? We had all of the armoured leadership. We came in with daring leadership, and we kind of clashed a bit.
Yeah,
we did eventually settle, and we brought people in and moved people around, and they realised that. Even some of the native guys, they were like, "Oh, I can really speak up about this, and I can really." And they had some great ideas about processes. So it was thinking back. That's exactly what happened. We walked in with all of these, I don't know, blue sky thinking, all of that, breaking ceilings, and then they were like, "No, we've got process. We take this out of here, we put this on this table. End of the day, we clear the table and we put this away, and we do this and we do this, and all in this order." And we ripped the whole thing to bits, eventually.
Yeah, I mean,
but we inspired them, though. I think it came up. It was a net positive in the end, I think. And I think you left a lasting impression.
Yeah, I think
we all did.
Things like introducing the ability to be rewarded for your ideas, both financially and both verbally. You were recognised from baseline upwards. We had the good ideas scheme or continuous improvement, whatever you want to call them. So you could be rewarded. Which, to be fair, a lot of the Germans that was interesting about the Germans in that sort of mode. They weren't necessarily bothered about money. It was more about time for them, wasn't it? They wanted time off. They didn't want money.
Yeah. I remember you always made a point that if an idea was good and we'd implemented it, you always made sure that we tracked it and then shouted about it. So this is an awesome idea, and you then set out to go, let's make sure that it is. And we had some reports and things to pull out the stats, like Brian's idea. The what did you call it? The solution, the Lawson solution, or whatever it was.
Outcome specification.
And it was just a bunch of slidey rails on the thing, but it was revolutionary. But then you shouted about it by giving it a name and talking them up when we had the ops meetings and the difference that it had made. So I think that's just as important as the idea itself. It doesn't just fall into obscurity.
The BL solution. What is that?
BL solution. That was it. It was the BL solution.
Yeah,
wasn't it? That was the slidey thing.
Yeah, so he probably doesn't listen to us. But BL Solution was a member of staff that came up with an idea, and he's called Brian Lawson. and Brian Lawson, we renamed that solution the BL solution after him and in honor of him. And he was very, very well paid for that, wasn't he? For that.
Yeah, but
for
to
that.
be fair, going over there, he
Oh, he
he
shone,
blossomed
didn't he?
somewhat. He shone.
Yeah.
He really did.
Yeah.
He had the logistics side of it, the outbound stuff.
Yeah.
Running smoothly, but he gained a lot of respect from the guys on that side of the business who were in some ways harder to please.
Yeah.
He did well. He did absolutely
and I
well,
think-
even though some might have taken the mick out of him when we, back in the day. But
There's
he was
there's
an
pros
absolute
and
legend
cons.
by the end of it.
There's pros and cons to the daring leadership, but one of the things I think with somebody like Brian was they saw that leadership was a potential option for them because it wasn't perceived as being so difficult and autocratic. But
Yeah.
I think let's take quickly just to sort of finish off. Armored leadership works in certain situations where the goal is to achieve a specific outcome with little margin for error. When you've got a little margin for error, you need to be closely looked at. In high pressure situations where calmness and composure are required, you might want that type of leadership. And where safety is a primary concern and risk needs to be minimized. So, I wouldn't work well on a building site, would I?
It's funny, that was the first thing I thought of was a foreman.
Yeah. So if you're in the nuclear environment where moving stuff from left to right, that's highly. You wouldn't want a guy like me in there because I would blow the place up, wouldn't I?
Nah, it's got to be kind of rigid. I've seen YouTube videos of the decommissioning of these things and how they work, and all the full body scanners and having to change out of clothes at certain times and wear different suits and carry these little badge things. There was all sorts of.
Yeah,
That's got to be.
So
it is the way it is. When you've got government regulations and that as well.
Exactly. So armored leadership works in certain industries and certain situations, versus daring leadership about taking risks, being innovative, inspiring others, and when you need to show courage in the face of adversity, that's where daring leadership sort of comes into its own. But in summary, both have a place. I know which one I prefer, but I can understand why a lot of people prefer the armored leadership in certain industries. It makes sense.
So we're in no way saying good and bad or good and evil or armored people are all people to be watched and careful of because it's all about career advancement and stuff like that. Well, not always. It's not. Sometimes it's about safety.
Yeah, you could reframe the words and you could say reward and risk, and the risk leadership is the one that is being careful and advising you, and the reward one is the daring. So, and you need that. I talk a little bit about me and my wife in terms of yin and yang, and I'm now that I know why my mind works the way it is. I need a little bit reining in now and then because I just think the world is a beautiful place and nothing will go wrong. And then there's the but.
So you need it needs to be a little bit of a parent now and again.
Yeah,
So, aye.
yeah. She does. She's probably the armored leadership, which is saying, have you assessed the risks? Are you aware of them? Have you risk mitigated? And are you still prepared to go ahead? And yeah.
But
And
that's
I think-
like you were saying about the caravan, isn't it? Because that was
Yeah.
the first time you'd really taken a structured, review-based approach and taking your time before. I just need a caravan. I've got this idea, and I need the instant satisfaction.
But and I don't want to go into too much detail, but this new thing that me and Anita and you're helping us with, that is very much of that mold now, isn't it? Where we're working together to create a decision based on being daring, but also armored at the same time.
Yeah, make it so I'm gonna help you make daring decisions based on data.
Yeah,
So you
which
at
is
least
great
got
combo,
some.
innit?
It is, and it's a way you and I have always worked, and probably why it worked well. Because you were always the emotional guy.
Yeah,
I was always the logical one.
yeah.
Well, I'm not saying I wasn't ever moody, but but I was the moody guy in the corner,
Yeah.
furiously typing up all of these different things, and you were always the loud sort of sunshiny guy walking through the. That said, you had your moments when you
Oh, yeah.
spotted something was going wrong. It was, aye,
Yeah.
aye.
But yeah, I think in terms of business, and if you ever get a chance, there's some good bits in here. It also goes through how your values and beliefs will probably move you into one of those two camps. And be aware of it, and you can't change it. So you'll probably slip because of how you've been brought up, your values, beliefs. You'll probably be in armored leadership versus daring, because you've been brought up in a certain way, and it helps you to go through that. And it says the values that you have, will they help or hinder you as you go through your leadership style? And so there's a couple of really good sort of paragraphs in there.
But we are talking about style, so it's not good,
Yeah.
it's not bad. You're not, although
No.
there are extremes that are unhelpful, like in all things. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I need to spend some time reading some of these. You've recommended some, and I've read some in the past. It's been a while since I've. And do you know what? I never got around to reading How to Win Friends and Influence People. I never read that.
Great book.
I know. I've read a bunch of the other things you've recommended, but that's one that I probably should have read and haven't.
Dale Carnegie, 1929.
It's still popular. It's still relevant.
Yeah, yeah.
It shows you the kind of analysis. And it also shows you how people perhaps don't change all that much over time, or business perhaps hasn't. Yes, so likes and subscribes and shares and some comments. Drop some comments. Let us know what you think.
Yeah. I would also suggest that, if we're going down this format a little bit more, if you've got something interesting, a little question that you want to raise, that you want us to spend 10, 15 minutes go over, I'd employ you to raise the question, whether it's fun bit of news in the local area or it's a coaching question. Give it and we'll do it.
That would be great. That would be great. Throw in a little spanner in the works there and challenge us to. That'd be great. I'd love that, yeah. Drop some of those comments. Let's see. Challenge us with something maybe that's relevant to your life and see if we can pull it to bits. See if we've got the knowledge already or whether we need to do a bit of research before we tackle it. That would be interesting. That would be interesting. But until then, until the next episode, take care on that.